First of all, we reelected the incumbent SBC president, Bart Barber, who is a mainstream conservative. He would probably be not quite as conservative as I am, but he is a conservative. He's a Texan, so they reelected him. They passed a resolution, and the resolutions are not binding or anything, they're just resolutions, opposing gender-affirming health care, calling such care spiritually destructive. So that's one of the resolutions. Another resolution, they passed a resolution that says pastors should equip women in their congregations for the work of ministry, and that commits the Southern Baptist Convention to cultivating an environment where women are fully respected, valued, and mobilized as co-laborers for the fulfillment of Christ's Great Commission. That's a lot of words, isn't it? I've never felt like I wasn't a co-laborer, but anyway, I guess some women feel like they need something like this. They passed a resolution on artificial intelligence that says Baptists must proactively engage and shape these emerging technologies, and that God alone has the power to create life. Passed a resolution on immigration that asks government leaders to provide clear guidance for immigrants and asylum seekers regarding border policies. That's a lot of words that say nothing. They approved a 1-year, okay, this is not a resolution, this is something they actually did. They approved a 1-year renewal of the Abuse Reform Implementation Task Force. And the task force unveiled a website, including a database soon to be populated with the names of abusers. So they're on this sexual abuse and child abuse case. This is the second year of this committee or task force has been implemented by the Southern Baptist Convention. So evidently there's a database of people, I don't know who have been accused of this or who have actually been found guilty of this, child abuse and sexual abuse. And that kind of goes in with our lesson today. They approved a constitutional amendment, which is really serious, to ban women pastors. It's already in the Baptist Faith and Message. And when you belong to the Southern Baptist Convention, you agree to the tenets of the Baptist Faith and Message. So now they're putting it as a constitutional amendment. They affirmed the decision to disfellowship 3 churches from the convention. Last year, they disfellowshipped 8 churches. 3 of them appealed, but they upheld the disfellowshipping of these 3 churches. 2 had women pastors, and 1 was in response to sexual abuse allegations. They didn't go along with what the task force asked them to do. That was Saddleback Church in California. That was Rick Warren's church. Rick Warren was actually there to appeal. Fern Creek Baptist Church in Florida was another woman pastor. She was there to appeal. And Freedom Church in Florida was the sexual abuse case. The leaders of the SBC's North American Mission Board honored Metro Nashville Police Department's chaplain, Andrew Ivey, a Southern Baptist who's a North American Mission Board endorsed chaplain, for his response to the Covenant shooting. The head of the Ethics Commission, ERC something, had 3 little children in that school, and he was very impassioned with his speech about it. Mike Pompeo, the former Secretary of State, head of the CIA, and a Kansas congressman, spoke on Tuesday night. The event was hosted by the Standing for Freedom Center at Liberty University and in partnership with the Conservative Baptist Network. He encouraged Southern Baptists to get involved in politics as well as practical ways to make an impact, such as teaching Vacation Bible School. Pompeo was a Sunday school teacher in Wichita, Kansas at one time. I did not know that. That's interesting. So that's your highlights from the Southern Baptist Convention. I think they did some good things. at the convention. How many of you have ever been to a Southern Baptist Convention meeting? All right, not very many. It's really, really fun. I still have pens and pencils, and there's, you go to the exhibit hall, and they give you free stuff. That was my favorite part. We're talking about Eli and the high priest, how his actions with his sons, his son's actions really affected the church, the temple. So let's look at this guy. Who is this guy? Anybody remember? Bob Baker, okay? Or James Baker. He was the televangelist in the 87, 80, 88, and 89 who had a great big old ministry. He was number one after Billy Graham, of course, as a televangelist. He got in trouble for having an affair in the church, and then they found out that he was defrauding the people of his ministry, so he was put in jail for 5 years. He is now in Branson, Missouri with another ministry. Got in trouble about doing something with COVID. I'm not sure what. Does anybody know who this man is? Jimmy, who's this man? All right, Jimmy Swaggart, okay. Has some famous cousins in country music. Jerry Lee Lewis and Mickey Gilley was his cousins. He was a Pentecostal preacher, had a ministry in Baton Rouge. When Jim Baker had all that trouble, he just, castrated him. He just thought it was awful. But then he was found with a prostitute in New Orleans. So, and this is his confession and begging forgiveness. He was out of the ministry from like 89 to 95, but his ministries are going big now right there in Baton Rouge. Who's this? I know you know, well, the name's up there, Pat Robertson. He died this year, right? This past week or last week. He has a 700 Club, the CBN network. Did a good job, I think. I think he was a Christian. I don't know anything about it. He started out as a Southern Baptist preacher. I don't really know anything bad about Pat Robertson. He ran for president one time. He is credited for getting Christians to collate around who to vote for. So I think that he did a good thing then. He was a good man, I think. This is his son, Gordon Robertson, took over Pat Robertson's network and his position on the 700 Club. He's a pretty good person, too, as far as I know. I haven't heard anything bad about him. So he had legacy. I know you know this guy. Who's this guy? Charles Stanley, pastor of the big church in Atlanta, Georgia, right? And he has his ministry. I don't know what it's called. Y'all know what it's called? I mean, some of you still listen to it today. In Touch, okay. Good preacher, very good preacher. Good person, I think. But his wife wanted a divorce, and he had always said that he would resign from the church if he ever got a divorce. But as 5 years went on, and she finally divorced him, and he did not resign from the church. The church told him that he could stay as their pastor as long as he didn't marry again. So he did not resign after he said he would resign. I think his ministry is still going strong. This is his son, Andy Stanley. Probably don't know Andy, but he, at the time of the divorce, he was working in one of the satellite churches of the First Baptist Church in Atlanta, and he was doing a real good job. He had like 10,000 people coming to his church. He did not agree with what his dad did. He wanted his dad to resign. He was being groomed to take over his dad's position, his ministries, and all that kind of stuff. Well, he resigned from his church, and he went out and started his own church, North Point Community Church. It is a non-denominational church, so he got out of the Southern Baptist Convention altogether. And his dad, they have an okay relationship, but not like what it was. So my question to you is, Charles Stanley's actions affected our convention. I mean, his son is now in Atlanta church, North Point, and he has like 30,000 members in that church, one of those big mega churches. What do you think about those non-denominational churches? We have one across the street, Love and Faith, or whatever that is, and we have one on the corner down there, Fellowship. What do you think about these? They're growing. That's true. What do you think about the non-denominational church? At least they're in church and they're Christian. I don't really know what they believe. I don't know the beliefs of these churches, but I think they preach Jesus, don't they? I'm not sure what they teach. Right, they would have no denominational rules, right? Uh, Feel good feeling, okay? Okay. What do you think when you hear about a church that's really doing well? I mean, having baptisms, lots of baptisms and people being saved. Aren't you glad? Aren't you glad? Yeah. The more Christian churches we have, the more people being reached. I think that's a good thing, right? That's bound to be a good thing. All right. Unit 1, mentoring, investing in others. That's our unit that we're in. This is session 3, and we're talking about 2 mentors here. Eli, Eli's the mentor and Samuel's the mentee. In 1 Samuel 2, 22 through 26, and 3, 7 through 10, and 15 through 18. All right, the setting is at Shiloh. All right, we're at the time now that they've crossed the Jordan River and they've conquered the promised land that God gave them. One thing they didn't do was what? Didn't get rid of all the people, right? They conquered them but didn't get rid of them. So they're there now having lots of troubles. This is the time of the judges. Eli was a judge. And where we're at right now is at the Shiloh, which is where it's right across the Jordan River, and that's where they set up their tent for the tabernacle and for the Ark of the Covenant, and where the high priest stays. So that's our setting today. Eli is the high priest, and he's also a judge. He's the second to last judge of these people. Elkanah and Hannah, a Jewish couple, asked God for a child. They wanted a child. And they promised that if God gave them a child, that they would dedicate that child back to him. Eli saw Hannah crying one day when they came to give their offering to the tabernacle. And he told her it was going to be all right. And then they had a child, and they named him Samuel. And they take Samuel when he's old enough and give him to Eli to serve for God. They later had 3 other boys and 2 other girls, so it wasn't like they was giving their only child to Eli. So Eli mentors Samuel. So that's how Eli came to mentor Samuel. The point is, don't let past mistakes prevent you from being an effective mentor. We've all made mistakes in the past. We've made mistakes with your spouse. You made mistakes with your husbands or wives or children or family or whatever. We've all made mistakes. Don't let past mistakes prevent you from being an effective mentor. Point 1, Eli failed God by failing to discipline his sons. This is in 1 Samuel 2, 22 through 26 in your books. 22 says, Now Eli was very old. He heard about everything his sons were doing to all Israel and how they were sleeping with the women who served at the entrance to the tent of the meeting. He said to them, Why are you doing these things? I have heard about your evil actions from all these people. No, my sons, the news I hear from the Lord's people spreading is not good. If one person sins against another, God can intercede for him. But if a person sins against the Lord, who can intercede for him? All right, he's talking to Phinehas and Hophni. They're his sons. They're priests, just like he's the high priest, they're priests. They were corrupt and did not know the Lord. That's what it says in one of the verses before that. They were corrupt and did not know the Lord. What they did was stole offerings from the church through force. The people would bring their offerings, and part of it was supposed to go to God, then to the high priest, and then to someone was kept for themselves. But they stole it and before it was cooked or anything to give it the best to God. And they forced these people to do that. They didn't do it voluntarily, they forced them. They were bad people. People decided not to bring their offerings to God. That's what happens, right? Doesn't affect just the priest, it affects the whole church. And being the pastor or leader of a church is a big thing. It not only, what your actions do not only affect you, your family, it affects the entire church. And that's what these people were doing. They were making the other people so mad and aggravated, frustrated, they didn't bring their offerings anymore to God. They also committed the sexual immorality. They made prostitutes at the temple, tent of meeting. They just corrupted the priesthood. And it wasn't the fact that they just did it in Shiloh. They went around and did this to other places. Everybody was affected. The whole country was, all the different tribes were affected. So it corrupted the priesthood. And Eli said, that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. But he didn't make them do better. And he didn't make them resign as priests. He didn't throw them out, did he? He was just talking to them. Verse 25, the second part of that verse says, but they would not listen to their father, since the Lord intended to kill them. Ooh. Did God intend to kill them no matter what? I don't think that was God's intentions. They were not repentant. Had they repented, I think God would have forgiven them, but they were not repentant. Unrepentant sin leads to death. That's what this verse says. It's not saying that God has intentions to go around killing us because we don't do what he says. But being unrepentant about it does lead to death. Verse 26 says, by contrast, the boy Samuel grew in stature and in favor with the Lord and with the people. So we see that Eli failed with his sons, made some big mistakes with his sons, but not with Samuel. Samuel was growing up in the right way. Eli was showing him how to become a good priest. Question, does your past mistakes prevent you from being a good mentor now? Does your past mistakes prevent you from being a good mentor now? No. And the answer is a resounding no. Of course, past mistakes, we're assuming you repented and you don't want to do those again. But it shouldn't hold you back. Eli was a mentor to his sons, and he failed horribly, but he helped Samuel. So past mistakes does not prevent us from doing good now. Point 2, listening to and obeying God is an essential part of growing spiritually. 1 Samuel 3, 7 through 10. Verse 7, now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, because the word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. Once again, for the third time, the Lord called Samuel. He got up, went to Eli, and said, here I am, you call me. Then Eli understood that the Lord was calling the boy. So Samuel was doing his job. He was supposed to keep the lamp burning all night long. And it wasn't unusual for Eli to call Samuel. Eli was very old. Eli was going blind. He was in poor health. And Samuel would help Eli bring water or whatever he needed. And so Samuel thought he'd called him 2 times, and this is the 3rd time, and Eli finally caught on. He said, here I am, you call me. And Eli understood then that it was the Lord calling the boy. He told Samuel, go and lie down. If he calls you, say, speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. So Samuel went and lay down in his place. The Lord came, stood there, and called as before, Samuel, Samuel. Samuel responded, "Speak, for your servant is listening." What keeps us from hearing as God speaks to us today? Samuel thought Eli was talking to him. He didn't know God was talking to him. Eli didn't realize it until the third time. What keeps us from hearing God speak to us today? Talk about that amongst yourselves. What keeps you from hearing what God wants you to hear today? We don't take time to read his word because that's where he speaks to us mostly, right? In his word. Busy doing other things, that's certainly true. That is certainly true. But God does speak to us today. Basically, he speaks to us through his word, although sometimes he gives us comfort through other ways, just a feeling of peace in our soul that we so desperately need at different times. Addie and Andrew went on a field trip with their classmates, 8th grade, to Washington, D.C. and New York. What? They had a great time. But I was concerned about it and was praying hard about it until about Monday, and God gave me peace in my soul and said, "Hey, I got this. It's going to be okay. I heard you. They're going to be okay." So after that, I didn't have to worry about it anymore. Sometimes those feelings come, and God speaks to us that way. But basically, he speaks to us through his word. So I'm going to give us some verses today, and you listen to what God has to say about this. He's speaking to us today through his word. This is Genesis 1:16. And God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, which is the sun, right? And the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. All right, how does that verse speak to you? Let's talk about that with your group. First of all, think about it. God made 2 great lights, one for the day, one for the night. And he made the stars also. What does that tell you? How does that speak to you? God made everything, right? God made everything. God made this world. What does that tell you about climate change? Who's in control of climate? God is, okay? What can we do to change God's mind about the climate? Nothing. That's right. I like that answer. All right. God made everything. He's in control, full control. How is the earth going to be destroyed? Or purified? It's actually going to be purified, not destroyed again. He promised it wouldn't be destroyed again, especially by water, okay? What do we have? What sign do we have to know that God's not going to destroy the earth by water? The rainbow. The rainbow is the Christian symbol, right? It doesn't belong to those pride people. The rainbow is the Christian symbol. It is a sign telling us that God's not going to destroy this earth by water again. But how is God going to purify this earth? Fire. By fire. That's right, by fire. All right, and that's going to be after Jesus comes again, I'm pretty sure. And we don't have any control over that, okay? Does that mean we can't be conservative and take out the trash and separate the trash, recycle and stuff like that? No, we're here to dress and keep it, okay? Isn't that what he put us in the garden for? I put them in the garden. This is our place to take care of. But in the long run, it all belongs to God. He made everything, and that affects each and every one of us. All right, here's a verse. Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand." How does that verse speak to you? You do not realize now what I'm doing, but later you will understand. as it is. Okay? Anybody going through something they don't understand right now? Is there a situation in your life that you just don't understand right now? This tells us you do not realize now what I'm doing for you in that situation, but later you will understand. I mean, this verse is really something we can go keep and really understand, really encourage us. All right, here's another one. Owe no one anything except to love one another, for he who loves another has fulfilled the law. That's in Proverbs, and that's in Romans. Owe no one anything except to love one another, for he who loves another has fulfilled the law. How does that affect your actions? Talk about that with your neighbors in your group. Knowing you're supposed to love one another, how does that affect your actions? Each and every day, what should you be doing? Loving each other, right? These people that aggravate you, you need to love them, right? Oh, no, that's what you owe to them. Okay, owe no one anything except to love them. All right, here's another one. I'll have to read it to you. Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourself fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain. What does that tell you? Well, how does that speak to you? Stand firm. Let nothing move you. Your work in the Lord is not in vain. So if you are trying to mentor somebody, stand firm. Don't be discouraged. Keep on going, because your labor is not in vain. That's what that says. It's in 1 Corinthians. Here's another one. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tested beyond your strength. But with the testing, he will also provide the way out so that you may be able to endure it. Okay, he doesn't say he does the testing. He says these things come upon us. How does that talk? God is faithful. He will not let you be tested beyond your strength. But with the testing, he will also provide the way out so that you may be able to endure it. What is that? Is that not encouraging to you? Does that not tell you something? Does that not speak to you? In all your troubles and trials and tribulations and health issues and family issues. Just trust him. Just trust him. He's faithful. He's going to help you through it. He's not going to put anything on you that you can't handle. He's going to help you through it. Provides a way. That way may be another person or something else, but he provides a way. All right, I like this verse. As iron sharpens iron, so one friend sharpens another. What does that say? As iron sharpens iron, so one friend sharpens another. That's in Proverbs. That says a lot about mentoring, right? We should be helping each other. We should be helping each other. All right, so listen to God. Samuel didn't know that God was even calling him. Didn't even know anything about God. We do. So we just need to recognize, and when we study these scriptures, we need to say, how does that apply to me? How does that apply to the situation I'm in right now? This verse, how does that help me? Point 3, sometimes sharing God's word is difficult. Verse 15 says, Samuel lay down until the morning. Then he opened the doors of the Lord's house. He was afraid to tell Eli the vision. But Eli called him and said, Samuel, my son, here I am, answered Samuel. What was the message he gave you? Eli asked. Don't hide it from me. May God punish you and do so severely if you hide anything from me that he told you. So Samuel told him everything and did not hide anything from Eli. Eli responded, He is the Lord. Let him do what he thinks is good. Sort of like what Ms. Dot said. It's in God's hands. He's going to do what he's going to do. What Samuel didn't want to tell him was that what God told him was that Eli and his sons were going to die. His family was going to be taken from him. Now, what happened was the Philistines and the Israelites battled, and the Israelites lost. Okay? That didn't happen to them. As they conquered the land, God was with them, and they won a lot of battles. The only time they lost something was when they didn't look to God and get the priest's advice about it. So they lost, and that really lost 4,000 soldiers. That really upset them. So they sent for the Ark of the Covenant. It was back in Shiloh. So Phinehas and Hophni accompanied the Ark to the battlefield. When they got it in the camp, there was all kinds of, clapping and roaring and hollering and hooping going on. It kind of scared the Philistines when they heard that. I mean, they were treating the Ark like a magic potion, a magic charm, a rabbit's foot. Go get the Ark. And Phinehas and Hophni came and got the Ark. They lost. The Israelites lost that battle again. Phinehas and Hophni were killed, and the Ark was taken. Eli dies when he hears the news. One soldier came back down the road, and Eli was sitting there watching down the road, and he heard the news, and he died. He was old and in bad health, and he died. And then his daughter-in-law died during childbirth, so his whole family was taken, just like God said it was when he told Samuel. So Samuel didn't want to tell him all this, did he? He didn't want to say, your family's going to die. God's brought judgment on you, and your family's going to die. Sometimes we have to say some things that are not good to people. How can we help others be receptive to the truth, even if it's painful to hear? Have you ever had to tell anybody anything that was really painful for them to hear? I'm sure you're thinking of things right now in your life where you've had to be the one to stand up and say, that's not right. What you're doing is going to lead you to a bad place. And you can only do that if you have a good relationship to the person, right? You think about your grown children, it's hard to to tell them painful things. It's hard to sit back and watch them do things you know are destructive for them. But that's part of mentoring too. Sometimes we have to say the words. Sometimes all we do is pray about it, and then God will eventually give us, I think, an answer in a positive way for that. All right, so we're talking about mentoring. Eli was a bad mentor for his sons, but good for for Samuel. Samuel went on to become high priest. He was the one that got Saul to be king. So he did some great things. So he would be a success story for Eli. But his sons were corrupt. I don't know how that happens, but that's the way things happen. Now, what about you and your Christian life? Mentoring and all the other things you do. Fighting the good fight. Standing firm. This is what I think we all want to say when we die, right before we die. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Is that not the verse that speaks to you? A whole lot. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race, and I have kept the faith. I think if we all end up there, that's a good place for us. All right. Any questions or comments about the lesson? All right, Brother Joe.
Okay. It was a good lesson, Patsy.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. We appreciate both of our teachers. They do a good job. One thing I would like to say, and we're going to go right into the prayer request, but I would like to say this: don't ever think that prayer does not work, because it does work. Now, it may not work in exactly how you would want it to work, but it's working like God wanted it to work. I know Judy and I, we had a issue with one of our sons was on the wrong path for a while, and we prayed for it and asked for prayer in this class. Most of it was back when we were in the balcony up where we had to climb the steps, and then we got too old to climb steps. But we asked for prayer for I don't remember how many years it was, but it was probably bumping close to 10, 8 to 10. And we thought at times that God just wasn't listening to our prayers. But one day it happened, and it's been faithful ever since. When God does something, He does it right. So don't ever be reluctant about asking for prayers, because they do work. Okay, prayer request. Okay.
I'd like to ask for prayer for my daughter and her husband and 2 granddaughters. They will be